Hey, Eagles fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No-Huddle Show podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles and make sure to bookmark that to get the latest Eagles news and analysis. Today, I'm once again joined by my No-Huddle Show co-host, Bob Brookover and Cayden Steele. Well, guys, we've waited all offseason, through the draft, through free agency, OTAs, what have you, and the regular season is about to begin. We're recording this here on a Thursday morning, and the Eagles are in São Paulo, Brazil, to take on the Green Bay Packers on Friday night. Now, before we get more in depth on about this game coming up, I want to bring in Cayden and Bob. Guys, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I'm excited for the season to start. A little weird that's on a Friday, right? Usually that's the time, as a kid, you go to high school football games and stuff. So to have the NFL game there is unique. But I'm excited for this thing to get rolling, to see how this team, plays. We spent the entire summer trying to predict and guess, how they're going to play, how many games they're going to win, who's going to start, all those types of things. But now, starting tomorrow night, we'll know everything. We'll start to know everything. We'll see how this team plays against a very tough Packers team. You got really hot at the end of last year and looked like one of the young premier teams in this league. So it'll be a good challenge and it'll be fun.
I'm going to be more brief than Cayden. Let's bleep and go.
Yeah, thank you for your self-edit, because we're going to keep it PG. I think we're going to try to keep that for the ad guys out there. We're going to keep it PG. Maybe later on, like we can do a After Dark one version. Okay, yeah, we'll make it. But yeah, good job. Well, guys, we're going to start out here with our opening drive question. And we're going to start out with what we're learning right now, some personnel news in terms of this Eagles. On Wednesday, we learned that linebacker Devin White would not travel with the team to Brazil because of an ankle injury that will keep him out of the game. Now, when you look at the linebacker position, it looks like Zack Baun and Nakobe Dean will start the game. Guys, I'll start with Bob and then Cayden. Guys, how comfortable do you feel about the linebacking duo against the Packers? And do you think White will ever start for the Eagles this season?
Yeah, I think when I did my preview for the season preview, the biggest question to me was the inside linebackers. It didn't matter if that was Devin White or not. The thing we got to remember about Devin White is his season ended last year with him losing his job to KJ Britt in the postseason. He was obviously a player on the decline in Tampa Bay. The way the Eagles and Vic Fangio went here was surprising, because Devin White was, not an ascending player there, and that's how he decided to sign. And then you get Zack Baun, who, according to Dennis Allen, the Saints head coach, is better suited he told me at the owners' meetings, he's better suited to play on the outside, and yet he's going to be starting on the inside. And Nakobe Dean, who couldn't stay on the field of injuries last year, is back playing, and I think probably their best linebacker right now, and the guy they most need to be really good. It makes for an really interesting storyline to me is, can Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Work his way into this mix? And it sure looks like he can right now. But I thought Nakobe Dean had a better camp than Devin White. I mean, Devin White wasn't really flashing a whole lot in training camp, in the scrimmage against the Patriots. It wasn't like he was flashing a lot. Zack Baun was the guy who seemed to be getting more attention of those two. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if Devin White did not start a game for the Eagles. You never want to open a door as a veteran player, and nobody knows that better than Devin White, because it got open to KJ Britt last year, and he didn't, by the end of playoffs, he was playing 10, 11 snaps. I'm not even sure he played that much in their last playoff game. But it's certainly a concern position. It was when Devin White was the projected starter. It still is when Nakobe Dean is the projected starter. And it appears to be the most glaring weakness on this defense as we head into the season.
Cayden, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a chance, that Devin White doesn't play, especially if he lost the opportunity. Right now, Nakobe Dean takes advantage of it, but when it comes to the linebacker position, it's the one that, I'm the most concerned about. I think a lot of people are the most concerned about just how this position group plays. I mean, Bob summed it up pretty well. There's doubts with each player in this group. With Nakobe Dean, it's the injuries and the size, and can he be a consistent guy in coverage? I mean, he had a really good camp, especially the second half. I mean, started a little rough, especially early on with that open practice and coverage. I remember the one route against Kenny Gainwell. Maybe someone that got overblown a little bit, but I mean, I still haven't seen enough where I'm fully confident in him when it comes to coverage. I believe in him as just instinct wise in the run game and just being able to anticipate and things like that. But and then Zach Bond, like Bob mentioned, is a guy that hasn't really done it before. He played on the outside with the Saints. He's a former edge rusher in college. This is a really new thing for him as well. And then, even a guy like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., if he gets the opportunity, he had a lot of questions about him coming out, dropped to the 5th round. Ben Van Sumeren. I mean, there's so many guys in this room with questions. Devin White. I mean, anyone who provides them stable play might end up being the guy who ends up starting. So, look, I think, because of that uncertainty, if Dean and Bond struggle, which is very possible, I mean, Devin White could get his opportunity again because I'm not sure if anything's set in stone at linebacker. Even a guy like Oren Burks might have came back because he thought, hey, if everyone struggles ahead of me, week 8, and this is a liability for this defense, maybe they'll put me out there and trust me. So the linebacker position is a big concern. Right now, Nakobe Dean is their best option, but I'm not sure if that's I'm not sure it's necessarily going to pan out. I mean, we got to see. He didn't stay healthy last year. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to be productive. And there's going to be an opportunity potentially for Devin White. And if he does get it, he's going to have to take advantage of it. But it speaks to, some of the stuff even in training camp. I mean, Devin White, just from my own eyes, didn't really stand out. I mean, I didn't think he was terrible or anything like that, but just Nakobe Dean consistently kept making plays, and he deserves the opportunity. But now he's got to prove that he should stay out there and keep that job from Devin White.
All right, we're going to talk more about, delve a little bit deeper into this game. Packers coming off a 9-8 season, one where they were a wild card. They snuck in, went on to defeat the Dallas Cowboys, free and eliminated in the divisional round. And when we looking at this game overall, I want to ask you guys, I'll start with Cayden first and then Bob. Cayden, what matchup should the Eagles feel comfortable against this Packers team, and which one do you think they should be concerned about?
Yeah, the one I would feel comfortable is I look at the secondary for Green Bay, and I have respect, or I think a lot of people have respect for how good Jair Alexander is. But outside of Jair Alexander on that cornerback depth chart, it's Eric Stokes, a former first-round pick who hasn't stayed healthy and recently and has not been like a super, productive or reliable player throughout his career. And then they got a Keyshawn Nixon in the slot. They have 2 corners, at least on this team, that I would feel comfortable going after consistently, like figuring if whatever side Jair plays on AJ or Devontae, there's going to be opportunities for one of those guys, to have a big night. And same for Jahan Dotson. Just overall with this Green Bay secondary, just have question marks. I know they brought in Xavier McKinney, and he's a really good player, but at the same time, starting next to him is a rookie in Javon Bullard. We expect this passing offense to be really good with Jalen Hurts. I mean, they have so many different weapons now. You have arguably the best wide receiver trio in football, and you're going to have Dallas Goedert as well. I think if Jalen Hurts gets a clean pocket and has a lot of time to throw on Friday, there's going to be opportunities to throw for a ton of yards against this Green Bay secondary. They're unproven, other than Alexander, like I said, and that's where the Eagles could really take advantage and win this game. And then when it comes to weakness, it kind of goes back to the linebackers. Jordan Love really impressed me at the end of last year, and his ability to throw across the middle of the field and make all different types of throws, but especially across the middle of the field, he was not afraid. And you got highly athletic tight ends like Luke Musgrave. And I know Tucker Kraft is dealing with an injury, but if he plays as well, you have 2 tight ends that are able to attack the middle. So those guys like Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond, and even if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. does play snaps, they're going to have to cover those guys across the middle of the field. And that's what would really concern me. And then just overall, just how they attack the middle of the field, even the safeties. I mean, they have just so many different options on the inside with their slot wide receivers. They can use Jaden Reed there as well. I just be worried about the middle of the field. If Jordan Love gets time in the pocket, he could be decisive. He could pick them apart. Saw him do it last year against really good teams at the end of the year where he's comfortable and he can just make all the throws in the world. So you give him time, I think he's going to pick apart the middle of this Eagles defense.
All right, cool. Bob, which matchups do you think will benefit the Eagles, and which one do you should be concerned about?
I think the one that benefits the Eagles the most is the interior of the Eagles defensive line against the Packers offensive line. They've made some changes. I think particularly at the Eagles, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, for that matter, should be able to exploit the interior of the Packers offensive line. Josh Myers is just okay as a center. Sean Ryan, Elgin Jenkins is probably the strength. It is the strength of that side of the line and the interior line. But I just think that you're talking about two monster guys, and I think so many people, Eagles fans, want to see Jalen Carter's second season and see how far he can take things after he was so good, especially early on last year. I think the Eagles could really and just really going to need to do that in order to win this game. They're going to have to get pressure up the middle, really make Jordan Love feel uncomfortable, pressure coming from the middle, and I think they're really going to be able to do that. I'll be surprised if they don't. I'll be surprised if Jalen Carter's not a monster in this game. I really will. As for the weakness, I'm going to go back to where we just were with the inside linebackers. If the Packers do get in trouble, with the pass rush up the middle, the one way to neutralize that is to run the football. And the addition of Josh Jacobs, 2 years ago, Josh Jacobs was the most special back in this league. Now he dealt with injuries last year and wasn't as good with the Raiders. But I mean, this is a guy who could claim to be every bit the superstar that Saquon Barkley is. I mean, and I'm sure they've talked about him in Green Bay through the offseason and the preseason, just the way the Eagles and Eagles fans have felt about Barkley. This is going to be his first showcase against in a real game, in a regular season game. And the inside linebackers are going to have to be there. And, the thing Vic Fangio pointed out about the Packers when asked about what the problems the Packers present, he said, the problem is they can both run the football and pass the football, and then you add in that Jordan Love can also be elusive. He's not the runner that Jalen Hurts is, but he's the type of quarterback who eludes the pressure and gets the ball downfield. But if the Eagles are able to get that pressure up the middle like they think they are, the Packers are going to really try to run the ball, and I think they're going to really try to run the ball anyway. With Josh, you don't add Josh Jacobs and say, we're just going to really be a passing team again. I think they are really a dual threat, and that the inside linebacker part worries me from an Eagles standpoint, because they're good at it, and now they got a guy who runs the ball great.
Nice. And for me, when I look at this game in terms of matchups, I didn't answer the first question because I know it had to do second one in terms of concern for me. Is when I look at the inside linebackers, it's going to be the Eagles inside linebackers versus Jordan Love. And it comes off the play fakes and how well that the Green Bay Packers established a run with Jacobs and the rest of that offense. It's really tough. When you get a good quarterback that can do the play fakes, or if you start to see that run really establish itself, linebackers can sell out really quickly. 1, 2, 3 yards in, and except 1, 2, 3 yards in, and they go, or use more colorful language, we'll say. And then next thing you know, the tight ends going behind them. We got wide receivers open in areas behind them, and they attack it. So I'm looking at this area, and I want to see how well they're being disciplined and making sure they trust their eyes, making sure that they don't fall for the fakes as much and don't sell out to the point you're exposing yourself in terms of that, because they're not the biggest linebackers at all. And so this is where you need Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter to do well in front to keep them clean so they can go effectively. But that's what worries me. And then conversely, I look at the Eagles, Saquon Barkley potentially having a good game against this Packers defense. I mean, last year when you look at the Packers, they allowed 128.3 yards per rushing per game, and that placed them fifth. That was the fifth highest total in the league last season. And obviously, teams make adjustments and they try to fix things, but that's something to look forward to in this upcoming game. So, yeah, I think the run game, especially with teams, I think both teams are going to try to settle on a run game early in order to calm everybody down, get used to that field, and acclimate themselves to the atmosphere, get used to being the first game of the season, and try to wear the other team out. Because that was a long flight, a lot going on. It's a lot of energy that's going to be expended in those first 5 minutes. So this is a way to settle it down. Now we're going to go to the next question here, as my notes society wants to stick together. I can't really read it. Fun, yay! I'll go with this to you, Bob. There's been a lot of focus on defensive end Bryce Huff. But the Eagles still have Josh Sweat, who's entering a pivotal year where he's about to become a free agent or get a big extension depending on how he does this season. Do you think Sweat can regain his Pro Bowl form and be a disruptive force on a QB's blind side?
Well, I'll answer this question through Josh Sweat's eyes, since I got to talk to him for about 10, 15 minutes by myself the other day in the locker room. He was terrific, and he took. I was surprised. He didn't really take offense to his contract as much as the idea that his contract, the Eagles' decision to give him a pay cut but give him guaranteed money. He took more offense to the idea that it had anything to do with the way he was playing last year. A lot was made that he had one sack in the last 8 regular season games, and then he did add another one in a playoff loss. But not many people are remembering that, because the only thing they remember is that the disaster of an end to the season had continued. But he made a good point. He said, "You know what? I felt like I was still rushing the passer well, and this is going by Pro Football Focus stats. He had, I think, 30. I got to add it up one more time here. In the last eight regular season games where he only had 1 sack, he had 13, 20, 21, 23, 26, 27, 30, 34. Team leading 35 pressures, and then he also had 2 more, and then he had the sack. And for the season, he led the team with 68 total pressures, and that's more than Hassan Reddick. It was a career high for him. And talk to pass rushers. Brandon Graham is one who I talked about it this week with. They hate that it always comes down to sacks. And yes, occasionally you got to finish to really you got to be finished to be recognized in this league. But to really analyze what the pressures do, you really got to look at things, because sometimes, you simply, give a guy a last second shove, or you're in his face as he's throwing the ball, and that can lead to an interception, a key third down incompletion, and those things never get looked at. So his point that, he was still rushing the passer well, even though he wasn't getting sacks for those last 8 games, is very well taken. But they need him. Everybody's talking, as you said, Bryce Huff has got a lot of attention, and Josh Sweat, I think it's by his own design, because when I went to talk to him the other day, I like this a lot. He said, "Hey, can we go out here and talk?" So you know how I am. I was like, "Fine with me." No crowd. Let's go talk by ourselves. And he did, by his own design, he did not draw a lot of attention during this preseason or training camp. I think he talked once early on, maybe the second or third day of camp, or definitely the first week of camp, and then didn't really talk again, stayed out of the limelight, which is like him anyway. But, we're talking about a guy who, since he's been a starter, I think he's got the 18th most sacks in the league, 18 and a half, since he's been in the league. Is he a superstar? No. But is he a steady, good pass rusher? Yes. And if he's that, and if Bryce Huff is the guy that the Eagles think he is, they'll be just fine on the edge. So to answer your question, I think Josh Sweat still has a lot in him. And also, he's playing for a contract. That was another question I asked him. I said, Josh, do you believe guys can turn it on and contract you? Oh, I definitely believe that, he said. So he's playing for a contract. He's still only 27 years old. He's got a chance to really make a lot of money if he has a year like he had 2 years ago when he had a career high 11 sacks. And talk about if he can add to those pressures. Brandon Graham put the number 15 on him. He thinks he can get to 15 sacks. This is a guy who really was under the radar in training camp, but really means a lot to this team.
Nice. And seeing his arc is going to be interesting, especially the Eagles we know the Eagles are going good. They have two good lines of edge rushers, and he's going to be the leading guy on that first line with Huff. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go there. Now, Kate, I'm going to ask you, this is the first time we've seen an offensive line without Jason Kelce, for first time in a long time, actually. What should we expect from this offensive line this season? Do you think Cam Jurgens will hold his own against the Packers defensive line?
Cam Jurgens, I feel pretty confident about him coming into this year, at least when it comes to the run game. We saw what type of athlete that he was at Nebraska. And that was led to being one of the reasons why the Eagles selected him. Jason Kelce talked about it a few years ago when he was on the Bleacher Report draft show. When he watched him, it reminded of him. And the way that Cam has been able to, even at right guard, and the glimpses that we've seen from him at center from his first preseason, and then even going into the summer, his ability to get to the second level and use his athleticism. I think he'll be fine in that regard, getting up to the linebackers, guys like Quay Walker, and just being able to seal those guys off. I think you'll be impressed by that. The one area that, maybe will give him some trouble, and I thought he was kind of up and down last year, right guard in terms of pass protection. And the Packers have, Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt, and they're both pretty, solid, pass rushers, especially Kenny Clark. So in one-on-one matchups, how he holds up against those guys will be interesting. And then also just curious, I know Jalen Hurts has talked about it, and it's going to be one of the big themes to watch this year is him picking up more authority of the offense, but how him and Cam mesh together to pick up bits, blitz protections and stuff like that will be key. So I think he'll do well. It's his first, full season at center. I mean, he might have some ups and downs in terms of some pass protection area and stuff like that. He's not going to be Jason Kelce, so the expectations probably have to be tempered a little bit, but he's a pretty athletic center. I mean, I think right away he might be one of the most athletic centers in the NFL, and he'll be able to do some of the stuff that Kelce was able to do, and which will help the Eagles' offensive line with Jeff Stoutland operate how they have done in the past for the most part. So the Cam will do well, and then overall, this offensive line should be strong. You still have one of the best tackle duos in the league, arguably the best tackle duo in the league with Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. Landon Dickerson is one of the best left guards in the league. The question really comes down to, like you asked, Chris, like how will Cam play at center and how will Mekhi Becton play at right guard? Will he be able to make that transition successfully during the regular season? Will he be able to stay healthy? Those are the questions you need. If he plays well, this Eagles offensive line can still be one of the most elite units or one of the best units in the league, and has a lot of potential still here.
Nice. It really is. It's curious. I really am. Like you mentioned, when it comes in terms of setting that protection and pointing stuff out, I want to see how much, we know Jalen Hurts is going to take an onus of it, but I want to see how much Cam Jurgens plays a role in that as well, too. The one thing that we all know about is athleticism. One thing I want to see is, can he point out and read whatever stunts are coming, a slanting line or a blitz coming, and how they adjust to that, how those two work together. So that's definitely going to be something to watch starting on Friday. Now, we're going to move into the segment that we started last week, the run pass option. Once again, instead of having these guys basically just go describing, in length of what's going on with a certain topic, they have a chance to either run with it and tell why they agree with that topic, or they can pass it and tell why they don't agree with that topic. So we're going to have 4 questions here, and we're going to give the question and a brief statement afterwards why they're running or passing. So, Bob, I'm going to start with you first. Bryce Huff will have 10 sacks this season, running or passing?
I'm running with that. He had 10 last season and barely didn't even play 50% of his team's defensive snaps. He's going to be on the field a lot more. He's going to have more than 10 sacks.
Cayden, were you running or passing with Huff having those 10 sacks?
Yeah, I'm going to run with that as well. He's been one of the most efficient pass rushers on a consistent basis, even with limited snaps. I think you bring a bigger, get him a bigger snap count. Maybe the efficiency goes down a little bit, but I think he finishes with more sacks. And as in terms of just being the most natural pass rusher, I think it's him over Josh Sweat, and I think he'll be the guy that leads the team in sacks by the end of the year.
Nice. Second question. Running back Saquon Barkley will finish with 100 rushing yards and 50 receiving yards against this Packer defense. Cayden, running or passing?
I'll pass on that one. 150 yards. I mean, Saquon's a good player, but I think the Eagles are going to spread the ball a ton. I think you're going to see Goddard, A.J. Brown, Devontae, Jahan Dotson, a lot of different guys involved. You might even see Kenny Gainwell get some snaps as well in that mix. I'm going to pass for that one for this week, just for the amount, for 150. But I think he'll be heavily involved.
Cool. Bob, what do you think?
I'm going to run with it because I think they're going to put so much focus on the other guys in this offense. And I think the Eagles really want to establish this running game. You think about the 2022 team, how good they were at running the football. They've never had a guy this. The last time they had a back this good was Sean McCoy. I just think that they want to establish running the football because they feel like it's going to open up the pass. And I think Saquon I think he's dying to play this game, and he's been waiting a long time to play this game. So I think he's going to come out and shine.
Nice. Next one. I'll start with you, Bob. Packers returner Keyshawn Nixon will have at least one return or more return yards than the Philadelphia Eagles' two kickoff returners combined.
I'm going to run with this. This guy, although it's amazing to see that the Packers didn't use him at all as a kick returner in the preseason. But he was so spectacular. He's a two-time All-Pro the last 2 years. He was so spectacular at doing it. It would be fascinating if the new rules turn this guy into just an average kick returner. But the Packers seem to be really good at it anyway. The few returns they had, they were good ones. They were like 29 and 30 yards. But I'm going to say I'm going to run with it and say this guy's still going to be a terrific kick returner, even with the new dynamic kickoff rules.
Do you believe that Nixon's going to have more return yards than the two Eagles returners, whoever they are combined?
I'll go with run too. I mean, it's tough to say that because it's going to be a lot of yardage. But from what I saw in the preseason, honestly, Chris, we've talked about it, that's been one of my biggest concerns. We watched that Patriots game and they broke some loose as well. And just generally, when it comes to this kickoff new rule league wide, I think teams are going to give up a lot of yardage early on. I think it's going to be a lot of unknown and how to defend this thing, and I'm gonna go with run, especially with Nixon being so electric. I think the Eagles are gonna let up one or two big ones.
And one little thing, a little note I'll add to that as well too, is on the league media briefing that was last week, and one thing they said, even with the 5 yards, if a team gets 5 extra yards, the scoring increases by a couple points. So that's gonna be something to watch in this game coming up. Finally, Cayden. The Eagles will finish with at least 12 wins, running or passing.
That's tough. I'm gonna go with running, and 12 wins. A lot has to go right, but this team, I think they're gonna bounce back from last year. With everything that happened with the collapse, you add a guy like Saquon Barkley, improve the secondary. They got something to prove. There's something to that where teams feel like they're doubted and they're hungry again. And I get that vibe from this team. Jalen Hurts, I feel, will bounce back. And then it helps that in the month of December that you'll be home pretty much the whole entire time. I know you got to drive to Baltimore. You got to drive to Washington but not a long commute. And you'll be able to have almost home field advantage for most of that month. It will benefit the Eagles, and this team has a lot of talent, and they'll bounce back.
Bob, what are you thinking? You running or you passing?
No, I already predicted him to win 12, so I have to run with it, even though I don't want to run with it. But I think tomorrow night's going to go a long way toward telling if they get to that 12 wins, because they get that first one, and if they can get to past that Rams game with like 7 wins, they're going to pile up some wins in the second half, the last stretch of the season when they play home against the Panthers, home against the Steelers, who I'm not overly impressed by. Home again or away against the Commanders, and then home against the Cowboys and home against the Giants. I see them winning their last 5. So, I think 12 wins is a definite possibility. And I think it's the exact number they'll finish at.
All right, cool. Well, next up now we got the 2-minute warning. The question that I have for you guys today, Cayden, I'll start with you with this one today. You got 2 minutes. Once again, the clock's going to be rolling. I'm not afraid to blow the whistle, as we saw last week. It will be used if necessary, but you got 2 minutes to stake your claim on the following question. The NFC team that is going to be the biggest threat to the Eagles is go.
The Detroit Lions, and this year we saw Detroit fall short in the NFC Championship last year. It was a close game against the Niners. I feel like it's just going to be their year if it's anyone besides the Eagles, as that threat. I trust the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs as the speedy electric back who can catch the ball out of the backfield as well with the 1-2 punch with David Montgomery. You got such well balanced on offense with Amon-Ra St. Brown able to target different areas of the field. Sam Laporta breaking out as one of the best tight ends last year. And then I'm a big believer that Jameson Williams is going to break out. And if that happens, this offense has a ton of potential with Jared Goff playing better last year. They have arguably, with the Eagles and a couple other teams, they have arguably the best offensive line in football. You revamped the secondary. You got Carlton Davis. You traded for him with the Bucs. You got Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw. So you fixed your biggest weakness on that defense. Aiden Hutchinson's a player that I think is going to continue to get better. And I'm a believer in what Brad Holmes has done in building this team. They're strong almost in every area. Those guys believe in Dan Campbell. And Detroit, I feel like it's just going to be their year. They're going to put it together. They are just so well balanced. They're so well coached, and they're so well ran. And feels so much different than it did 5 to 10 years ago. This Detroit team has a ton of potential all over the place. Offensively, they're going to be tough to stop, and defensively, they're going to be strong. And quarterback play, Jared Goff has gotten so much better throughout the last few years. So with Ben Johnson also staying there, and that's key. They seem like they have good chemistry, and it's going to click for them.
You scored. Hey, only 26 seconds left. Bravo. Congratulations on that. Bob.
All right.
It
was a good answer this time. It was a good answer again this week, and it wasn't too long, but it was still long.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, easy.
The right answer is...
I didn't start the clock yet. I see you trying to do it. You're trying to do the Jason Kelsey, move the ball up an inch and then move it for that way to get some seconds. I see how you're doing it. Here we go.
I'm a veteran, pal. I'm a veteran.
See, I knew it. Here you go. Your 2 minutes starts now.
All right. Wrong answer. Good answer, but wrong answer. The right answer is the San Francisco 49ers. They've been the team in the NFC for the last 5 years. So close. They went through a tumultuous offseason for sure, but it all got settled before they got to the starting line. And, training camp doesn't matter to these guys. We used to talk about it in baseball, you need 6 weeks. No, you don't need 6 weeks. They can be ready in 2 weeks. These guys can be ready right away. They keep their bodies in shape year round now. And they're still the most talented team, especially on offense. Christian McCaffrey's a superstar. Brock Purdy's underrated. Deebo Samuel's the nastiest, toughest wide receiver in the league. Brandon Ayuk is back, and he's happy. Trent Williams is happy. Yeah, I have some questions a little bit on their offensive line, but defensively, it's still a monster team. Fred Warner's still a monster. This is just Nick Bosa is, if not the best edge rusher, one of the top 3. They still have Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, or no, did they lose Eric Armstead? They might have lost Eric Armstead.
Yeah, he left.
They did. Javon Hargrave's still there. They're just such a good team all around. They can outscore anybody. They're still more talented than the Lions. The Lions, it is a good answer. The Lions would be my second choice to be the biggest threat, and I think the Lions would be my second choice even to be the second best team in the NFC behind the Niners. The Eagles have a lot to prove, and if they're going to be one of the best teams, but to me, I go with the Niners still until proven otherwise.
You got in there with 12 seconds left. Interesting. That was good.
So use my time wisely.
That was good clock management. You didn't leave anything in. I'm just going to blow the whistle just to blow the whistle because I just like doing it.
All right.
There we go. All right, cool. Just so it always works.
Feel better?
Yeah, I feel better now. I don't know why. It just always feels so soothing to do that. I don't know. Finally coming up here, and we thank you guys for continuing to listen on, if you're enjoying us for today's show. We're at the overtime section where we're always going to have a little question, make these guys think and see what goes on. So today's overtime question. Being that the game is being played in São Paulo, sets up the possibility for many other venues to be played at. Next year, we know that Barcelona is going to be one of the venues. The league's already in London, Germany, Mexico City. And on the call, they were mentioning they're looking at sites in Australia and Asia Pacific as well, too. And I've heard that there's another spot that's way in between both of those places that could be under consideration, too. I'll used to say it's very, very hot there. So, if you guys were a commissioner, and Bob, I'll start with you with this. If you were a commissioner and you have the chance to choose a city as a potential venue, where are you going and why?
Well, this is just really easy. The answer is Sydney, Australia. The guys have been coming there for forever. They might have the second coolest game in sport in Australian rules football, which I think is a great fun sport to watch. I used to watch it all the time as a kid. When ESPN first started out, Australian rules football was on all the time, and they had the guy in the cool white hat who made the mark. It's much more entertaining than soccer. But Jordan Mailata's from there. It would just be a great venue. I think Australia is a great sports country. I think they very much love all things American. They've adopted baseball. There's so many Australian guys trying to play baseball now. Baseball is very big over there. They love American sports. It seems like all the American, all the NFL punters are from Australia anymore, aren't they? Is there anyone that's not?
Yeah, the Sav Rockers of the world, and
love covering Sav Rocca. I mean, Sav Rocca was a punter who, like, when he punted the ball, the opposing the punt return team did not want to mess with Sav Rocca. It was like, I don't think I'm going to mess with that guy. And he wasn't afraid to make a tackle. It just, to me, would be a great venue. And besides, if the Eagles went there, that's one place I'd really love to go, is Sydney, Australia.
Yeah, and nice. And two things off of that, too. Australian rules football is always fun to watch. I may have a recorded version every Thursday morning because it's their afternoon over there, their version of Thursday Night Football. I may watch that here and there. Go Blues. And then also you mentioned Australia as a whole. Well, it's interesting because the Eagles have marketing rights there in Australia and New Zealand. So who knows if they decide to have a game there? I think the travel will be extremely tough, and they need a bye week, especially fighting there. But they do technically have marketing rights there, so that'll be interesting. Cayden, if you were a commissioner, you now replace Roger Goodell. You have a chance to add a new city to the rotation. Where are you going and why?
Yeah, I debated between a few. I think the one I'm leaning with is I would go with Tokyo, Japan as a choice. I know football is growing more popular in Japan from what I was reading. I think it was like the U20 team this summer. I know people were joking about it on the internet, but their national team beat the USA.
Yep.
I know. I know they have an X League, like they have their own American football league over there. So I know it's a growing popular sport. They haven't been to that part of the world yet, and I think they could expand, their their fan base, and I think it would be a good opportunity. Tokyo is a cool city. I feel like maybe it's a little bit biased, and it's it's something I would want to go to, but I think it would be a good opportunity for a country where football is getting more popular. You could grow your fan base, and Tokyo is one of the most cool cities in the world. So I feel like that could be a good option if you wanted to expand into Asia, which it looks like you mentioned, Chris, that they want to do. So that would be my number one choice.
Yeah, I know. I may know somebody whose son may have been on that U20 team, and I kind of ribbed him for it, and that was kind of fun to watch on Thursday. But the NFL, and I was kind of shocked. We talked about Sydney and how long that flight is. The NFL used to have the International Bowl, and they would go to the Tokyo Dome and play a preseason game there. So it's not like the NFL isn't familiar with them already, and who knows? Maybe they bring it back there, and we see a matchup coming up there. Now, for me, I thought of two things. I thought about staying Accra, Ghana, because the Eagles have marketing rights there, and it'll be cool to see the first NFL game played in Africa. I thought that would be pretty interesting. But to me, if I want to go full NFL experience, and I know it sounds in the name and it's actually a lot more green than Greenland, I'm going Iceland. Because I want to see a frozen tundra. I want to see a really cold game. I want to see it invoke. Now I'm forgetting it's John Facenda. I want to see. We know we have AI versions now. Why not invoke the AI version of John Facenda narrating that game as it's like, I don't know, like probably Tim Malone, what have you, when you're up there. I think that'd be a cool venue. I mean, you're near a volcano. How many times you can say that besides Hawaii? They can be playing near a volcano. That'd be kind of fun. And yeah. The time difference, it'd be a couple hours before, I believe it's a couple hours before, say, London or something like that. So I'm going to go off the board. I'm going to go say Iceland, Reykjavik, Iceland. Why not? I mean, why not? At this point, they're going everywhere else. Pretty sure the owners will love to go to Antarctica if they somehow find a way to profit off of that. So who knows about that? Fun times. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys for joining me, Bob and Cayden. Thank you, as always, on this podcast. And thank you to listeners for being on here as well, too. Once again, to make sure to check NJ.com/Eagles. We'll have all the coverage going on from the tomorrow's or Friday night's game against the Packers and the fallout from that, whether it's positive or negative, and we'll go from there. So for Bob and for Cayden, I'm Chris. Everybody have a good one. See ya.